What is minimalism in Stoicism? In a world driven by consumption, excess, and relentless desire, the philosophy of Stoicism offers a refreshing and radical alternative. Live simply. Minimalism in Stoicism is not merely the reduction of material possessions, it is a conscious, philosophical approach to life rooted in clarity, virtue, and inner freedom. To live minimally in the Stoic sense is to remove all that is unnecessary, externally and internally, so that the mind may focus on what truly matters. This idea, while increasingly popular in modern times, was deeply embedded in the teachings of Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Each of them, in different ways, advocated for a life free from the chaos of overattachment, whether to wealth, fame, comfort, or even opinion. Epictetus, freedom from attachment. Epictetus, once a slave who rose to become a respected philosopher, taught that our peace depends on distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. Minimalism, from his perspective, is a natural extension of this principle. The more we depend on external things, status, possessions, indulgences, the more power we give them over our emotions. He wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This is the essence of Stoic minimalism, liberating oneself from desires that serve no virtuous purpose. To Epictetus, the pursuit of more is a form of enslavement. By reducing our dependencies, we create space for autonomy, resilience, and clarity. Seneca, true wealth lies in needing less. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, lived in Rome surrounded by luxury, yet his writings reveal a man deeply skeptical of material abundance. In his letters and essays, he continually reminds readers that wealth is meaningless if it corrupts the soul or distracts from virtue. He famously said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Seneca believed that we should not be owned by our possessions, no matter how abundant they are. Practicing voluntary discomfort, he would occasionally sleep on the ground or eat plain food, not out of self-punishment, but as a reminder that he could survive without luxury. This mental training gave him strength. It was not about denying joy, but about choosing what kind of joy is worth pursuing, and which ones only lead to more craving. In this way, Stoic minimalism is not anti-wealth, but pro-independence. It is not about throwing everything away, but about ensuring that nothing external controls the internal self. Marcus Aurelius, simplicity as strength. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor of Rome, ruled a vast empire while practicing deep Stoic reflection. In his private journal, Meditations, he often urged himself to return to simplicity. Even as the most powerful man in the known world, he recognized that real power came not from dominance, but from clarity and self-command. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Marcus believed that luxury was a distraction from wisdom. The simplicity he valued was not just in things, but in thought, speech, and action. He encouraged stripping life down to its essentials, to act with integrity, to speak only what is necessary, to think only what is true. Stoic minimalism, for Marcus, was a moral and spiritual discipline, a way to live in accordance with nature, reason, and the logos, the rational principle of the universe. The core of Stoic minimalism, focus on the essential. What unites these thinkers is the belief that a cluttered life reflects a cluttered mind. To live well, we must first decide what matters, and then remove all that does not. For Stoics, what matters is virtue, courage, wisdom, justice, and self-control. Everything else is secondary, or as they say, indifferent. Minimalism in Stoicism is not aesthetic, it is ethical. It is about cleaning the lens through which we view the world. By shedding the non-essential, we become more capable of seeing what is true, acting on what is right, and enduring what is difficult. Modern relevance. In today's world of endless notifications, consumer advertising, and social media validation, Stoic minimalism is more important than ever. It invites us to declutter not just our homes, but our desires, expectations, and identities. It challenges us to measure success not by accumulation, but by peace of mind. To live minimally like a Stoic is to ask, what do I truly need? What desires have been implanted by society, not reason? What can I remove to live with more focus, freedom, and purpose? In practicing Stoic minimalism, we do not shrink our lives. We sharpen them. We choose quality over quantity, depth over appearance, and meaning over distraction. And in doing so, we uncover the hidden richness of a life lived simply. Freedom comes from non-attachment. What does it mean to be truly free? Is it the ability to travel anywhere, speak anything, or possess anything we desire? The Stoic philosophers argued otherwise. To them, freedom was not about external liberties or material abundance. True freedom, they said, was an inner state, a mind unchained from desires and fears, a life built on non-attachment. Epictetus, once a slave, spoke most clearly on this. He taught that our suffering does not come from events themselves, but from our judgments and attachments to those events. We are disturbed not by death, poverty, or rejection, but by our opinions that these things are bad. If we can change our judgments, we can free ourselves from the tyranny of fortune. No man is free, he said, who is not master of himself. To Epictetus, the key distinction in life was between what we can control, our thoughts, choices, and actions, and what we cannot control, everything else. Attachment makes us try to control the uncontrollable. We cling to outcomes, to people, to possessions, and when life inevitably changes, we suffer. Freedom is found when we let go of what we never truly owned. Consider this: when we tie our happiness to a specific result, a job offer, a relationship, a social approval, we become vulnerable. That desire owns us. We lose sleep over it. We compromise our values for it. And if we fail to get it, we collapse. Epictetus would call that slavery. You may be rich, he said, you may be admired, but if you need those things to be happy, you are not free. Seneca, the Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher, echoed this idea. He was a wealthy man, yet he believed that freedom came from needing little. It is not the man who has too little who is poor, he wrote, but the one who hankers after more. Seneca warned against being owned by wealth, luxury, and status. He advised his readers to practice voluntary discomfort, to sleep on the ground, to wear rough clothing, not to punish the body, but to teach the mind that happiness does not depend on comfort. He believed that by detaching from luxury in times of abundance, we prepare ourselves for hardship. We become unafraid of loss because we've learned that we don't need the things we thought we did. That is true wealth, the ability to live well regardless of external conditions. That is true freedom. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, ruled a vast empire, but he constantly reminded himself that even emperors are not in control of most things. In his journal Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He trained himself daily to detach from praise and blame, from luxury and hardship, from the illusion of permanence. He practiced gratitude for the present moment and let go of expectations. To Marcus, non-attachment was not indifference, it was clarity. He could love, lead, and act with full intention, but without being consumed by what he could not control. This allowed him to remain calm in war, patient in illness, and humble in power. That is freedom. Not the absence of responsibility, but the absence of inner turmoil. Non-attachment is not about withdrawing from life. It is about engaging fully, but with wisdom. The Stoics never said we should not care. Instead, they taught us to care wisely. Love your family, but know that they are mortal. Work hard, but accept that success is not guaranteed. Enjoy life's pleasures, but don't depend on them. This mindset does not lead to apathy. It leads to resilience. When we stop needing everything to go our way, we become stronger. When we stop fearing loss, we become courageous. When we stop chasing approval, we become authentic. This is the paradox of Stoicism. By giving up control over what we never truly had, we gain control over ourselves. Today's world makes non-attachment harder than ever. We are surrounded by noise, social media, advertising, pressure to achieve and consume. Everything tells us to want more, to compare more, to fear missing out. But the Stoic path offers an antidote. In silence, in simplicity, in reflection, we rediscover that peace does not come from getting more, but from needing less. In the end, freedom is not a gift from the world. It is a discipline of the soul. To be free is not to have everything, but to be content with what we have and unafraid of what we don't. As the Stoics taught, the one who rules his desires is more powerful than the one who rules the world. Wealth is not having more, but needing less. In a world where material success is often the benchmark of a good life, the ancient Stoic idea that wealth is not having more but needing less sounds almost revolutionary. This principle, most eloquently expressed by Seneca, cuts against the grain of consumer culture and invites us to redefine prosperity. True wealth, according to the Stoics, lies not in accumulation, but in contentment, a mindset rather than a bank account. Seneca, the Roman philosopher and statesman, warned about the endless hunger for more. In his letters to Lucilius, he often emphasized that the pursuit of luxury for its own sake leads to spiritual poverty. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor, he wrote. The core of his wisdom lies in this. As long as your happiness depends on external abundance, it is unstable. You are always at the mercy of what you do not yet have. This is not a condemnation of money itself. Seneca was, in fact, wealthy. But his Stoic view was clear. Wealth should be used wisely, not worshipped. A man who possesses millions but cannot be satisfied without more is less free than the humble individual who desires little and finds joy in simplicity. To need less is to liberate oneself from the tyranny of desire. Epictetus took this even further. Born into slavery, he had almost nothing. Yet he taught that freedom is not a matter of circumstances, but of attitude. In his discourses, he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." According to Epictetus, the more desires you have, the more chains you wear. Every craving is a leash pulling you away from autonomy. Every time you say, "I need this to be happy," you give a part of your freedom away. This detachment from excess isn't about self-denial for the sake of suffering. Rather, it's about regaining clarity over what truly matters. If you can sit quietly with yourself without needing entertainment, luxury, or applause to feel whole, then you are truly rich. As Epictetus reminded his students, the key to happiness is not to get what you want, but to want what you already have. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and perhaps the most powerful Stoic to ever live, echoed this principle in his meditations. Despite his immense authority, he often reminded himself to live plainly. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." His life was full of duties, responsibilities, and pressures that would crush most people. Yet he sought refuge in the simplicity of Stoic discipline, a mind free from excess, grounded in purpose. When we compare this ancient wisdom to the modern world, its relevance becomes even sharper. Today, we are surrounded by advertisements convincing us we are missing something. Social media fuels comparisons, making us feel poorer in spirit no matter how much we own. We are told we need more to be enough, more clothes, more gadgets, more experiences. But Stoicism reminds us, the one who needs less is not missing anything. In practice, needing less doesn't mean rejecting all comforts or living in poverty. It means being intentional, asking, do I need this or do I just want it? Is this desire coming from within or from someone else's definition of success? Minimalism, a concept often celebrated today, is rooted in this Stoic awareness. To strip away the unnecessary is to see clearly again. What remains is the essential, and that is more than enough. Wealth, then, is not measured by how many things you possess, but by how lightly you can walk through life. When your happiness depends on fewer conditions, you become unshakable. You don't cling to outcomes or chase after symbols of prestige. You live simply, love deeply, think clearly, and give freely. This is not an escape from the world, but a return to sanity within it. In knowing how to need little, you gain everything: time, peace, freedom, and the power to appreciate what already is. To need less is not a lack, it is a strength. It is the mark of a person who has looked within and found sufficiency. And that is a kind of wealth no economy can measure. Focus on the essential, discard the inessential. In a world overwhelmed by distractions, choices, and noise, the Stoic principle of focusing on the essential and discarding the inessential shines like a beacon of clarity. The ancient Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, understood this long before our age of endless notifications and information overload. For them, clarity of thought and action was not a luxury. It was the foundation of a good life. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. These words reflect the essence of Stoic simplicity. Filter your life through the lens of what matters. Strip away the unnecessary. Speak only what is true. Do only what aligns with virtue. Everything else is noise. The wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, returning to the core. As Emperor of Rome, Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by luxury, politics, and endless demands on his attention. Yet in his meditations, we find a man constantly reminding himself to return to simplicity. He urges himself and us to focus on what matters: justice, integrity, self-discipline, and rational action. Marcus often repeated a phrase to himself: ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? This is the ultimate Stoic filter. Every thought, every task, every desire should be examined. If it does not contribute to our character, our duty, or our peace of mind, it is expendable. The Stoic does not chase novelty or cling to clutter, material or mental. He prunes his life like a wise gardener, removing weeds to let what truly matters grow. Epictetus and the power of discernment. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that we are only free when we master our own minds. That means knowing what is within our control and refusing to be disturbed by the rest. But it also means understanding what is essential to a flourishing life. Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, he said, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. For Epictetus, the inessential includes not just material excess, but also the mental clutter of gossip, status, and other people's opinions. Why should we spend our energy worrying about things we cannot control or chasing validation that brings no real peace? The disciplined Stoic filters his environment, his relationships, and his own thoughts. He does not reject society, but he refuses to be ruled by it. Seneca, simplicity as strength. Seneca, a wealthy advisor to emperors, was no stranger to power or possessions, yet his letters are filled with advice on simplicity. He reminded his students and himself that wealth means nothing if it makes us more anxious. That luxury is meaningless if we depend on it to feel content. True happiness, Seneca wrote, is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. For Seneca, the essential is this moment, lived fully, with self-awareness and reason. The inessential is everything we crave without thinking: excessive wealth, praise, reputation, fear of loss. Simplicity is not about owning less. It's about needing less, about mastering desire rather than being mastered by it. Practical steps to focus on the essential part. Incorporating this Stoic clarity into modern life doesn't require becoming a monk or abandoning all possessions. It begins with questions. Is this thought or worry useful? If not, let it go. Does this action align with my values? If not, stop doing it. Am I doing this for approval or because it is right? Choose the latter. Does this possession, habit, or person support my peace of mind? If not, consider stepping away. Daily reflection is key. Marcus Aurelius reflected each morning on his duties and each evening on his choices. You can do the same in a notebook or a quiet moment. Check in with yourself. Are you staying true to what matters? The result: mental clarity and inner freedom. When we remove the inessential, we gain space, not just physical space, but mental and emotional space. Space to think clearly, to act deliberately, to feel at peace. Focusing on the essential brings freedom. You no longer chase what others chase. You no longer compare, fear, or overextend. You walk your path with calm and confidence. Not because life is simple, but because your mind is. The Stoics did not promise an easy life. They promised a clear one, and with clarity comes strength. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius. In the end, the Stoic life is not about less for its own sake. It's about less distraction, less noise, less illusion, so we can make room for what is real: virtue, reason, connection, and peace. The benefits of living minimally through the lens of Stoicism. In a world overflowing with noise, possessions, and constant stimulation, minimalism offers a breath of clarity. But for the Stoics, ancient philosophers who sought wisdom through reason and self-discipline, minimalism was not just a trend. It was a path to inner freedom, a practical response to the chaos of life. When viewed through the Stoic lens, minimalism becomes more than the act of decluttering. It becomes a philosophical tool for cultivating a life rooted in purpose, peace, and personal sovereignty. 1. Freedom from attachment. One of the core teachings of Epictetus is that freedom lies not in the abundance of external things, but in our ability to remain undisturbed by them. He famously said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." When we live minimally, we remove the emotional weight attached to material things. We no longer define our identity by what we own or compare ourselves to others based on status symbols. This detachment is not a rejection of all pleasures or comforts, but rather a conscious recognition that our peace should not depend on them. By reducing our dependence on external validation or consumer goods, we reclaim autonomy over our inner life. 2. Clarity of purpose. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and a Stoic philosopher, frequently reminded himself in his meditations to eliminate unnecessary action. For him, this meant constantly returning to what was essential, what truly served the purpose of a rational and moral life. Minimalism, in this sense, becomes a filter through which we focus only on what aligns with our values. By cutting out the distractions, both physical and mental, we gain clarity. We stop wasting time, money, and energy on things that do not serve our higher goals. This allows us to make more intentional decisions and, over time, live a life that feels deeply aligned with who we are and what we stand for. 3. Emotional resilience. Living with less teaches us to be more adaptable. When we are no longer overly attached to material comforts or rigid routines, we become more emotionally flexible. Seneca warned that luxury can soften the soul, making us less capable of enduring life's inevitable hardships. The Stoic who practices minimalism, on the other hand, becomes stronger. Through voluntary discomfort, choosing simplicity over luxury, we prepare ourselves for the unpredictability of life. If we can be content with little, we are far less shaken when circumstances shift. This kind of training strengthens our inner core, allowing us to remain calm and composed even in crisis. 4. Increased gratitude and presence. Minimalism enhances appreciation. When we strip away the excess, what remains becomes more visible and valuable. A single meal, a quiet moment, or a meaningful relationship can take on profound significance. As Seneca put it, he is most powerful who has power over himself. Gratitude arises more naturally when we are no longer chasing what we do not have. Instead of living in a state of perpetual desire, we begin to notice what is already enough. This shift not only cultivates peace, but also deepens our presence in daily life. We stop rushing, comparing, or grasping, and instead, we start living more intentionally in each moment. 5. Sustainable living and ethical awareness. From a Stoic perspective, living in accordance with nature is a foundational principle. This includes not only our own human nature, but also the broader natural world. A minimalist lifestyle naturally supports sustainability. We consume less, waste less, and place less strain on both personal and planetary resources. Stoicism encourages us to be mindful of our duties not only to ourselves, but to others. By choosing a simpler life, we become less complicit in systems of overproduction, exploitation, and ecological harm. Our actions begin to reflect a greater sense of justice, self-restraint, and compassion. 6. More time and energy for what matters. When we are not constantly managing, organizing, cleaning, or purchasing new possessions, we gain back a precious resource: time. The Stoics valued time above all else, viewing it as the one thing we can never recover once lost. Seneca wrote extensively on the shortness of life, urging readers to spend it wisely. Minimalism allows us to invest time and energy in what truly matters, whether it's philosophical study, meaningful relationships, creative pursuits, or self-reflection. Rather than being scattered and overwhelmed, our lives become centered, focused, and full of intention. Conclusion: Stoic minimalism is not about living in poverty or rejecting all comfort. It is about making space, internally and externally, for what truly matters. It's about freeing the self from unnecessary desires, cultivating peace of mind, and strengthening the soul through simplicity. In a world that constantly tells us we need more to be happy, the Stoics offer a radical, liberating message: you already have enough. Learn to want less, and you will gain everything that truly matters.